Joining us now, the Lakers general manager, Mitch Kupchak. What's the most points you scored in a game?
The most points in an NBA game? Oh, my goodness, Dan. It's been a real long time. I can hardly remember, to be honest with you.
What about high school or college?
High school, I had a big number. That one I remember. Out on Long Island, I think I had 50 points or 52 points in a high school game.
But did you ever feel guilty that you were scoring that many?
Not really. It was kind of fun.
But when Kobe puts up 81, can you have a conscience? Like, are you thinking about yourself, do you think? Or is there any moment where you go, you know what, maybe I should pass a little bit here?
No, I think in the Kobe Bryant 81-point game, it turned into an event, a happening, where everybody in the building knew that they were watching history. And at that point, I think his teammates and the other – I was surprised the other team, I believe it was Toronto,
yeah.
They did not start double-teaming. But it's kind of like it takes on a life of itself, and everybody realizes they're watching something special. So in that regard, I don't think there was any animosity by any of his teammates.
As far as scoring goes, the excitement, and you look at what Showtime used to be with the Lakers, but to bring back something that is similar to that, how important is the entertainment part of the Laker success?
Well, the number one thing, is always winning here in Los Angeles. And with Phil Jackson, we had a coach who, for a lot of years brought winning to this franchise. Having said that, going back to my first year in Los Angeles in 1981, Dr. Buss made a coaching change, going from the existing coach to Pat Riley because he didn't like the style we were playing. And I was on the team, and I think we were like 7-3, or we had a winning record when he made the change. So Dr. Buss and the Buss family do like a certain tempo of basketball, but number one is always winning.
That wasn't Jack McKinney. Who was the coach before Riles?
It was Paul Westhead.
Paul Westhead style, okay.
And Jack McKinney was the one who introduced that style, and then he had a bicycle accident, if you may recall.
Yeah.
And Paul Westhead took over for Jack, and then Paul won a championship, and then a year later, Pat Riley took over, and the rest is history there.
But you get Mike D'Antoni's style, marrying that style to a roster that's basically in its 30s. How does that work and be successful?
Well, it remains to be seen. Clearly, we felt that Mike's style of play was best suited for the talent we had on the team. Now, a lot of that has to do with bringing Steve Nash in, but not all of it. We have a very athletic center now in Dwight Howard, and some of the other moves he made over the summer, we just felt that in addition to the style of play we wanted to change, it's just Mike's style was more suited to the players we have on the team. Now, we have to wait to see how that works out, but that was our feeling 2 weeks ago or a week ago.
But why bring Mike Brown back if you're bringing in different players who are going to run a different style or need to be successful?
Mike did not play this style last year. Upon the conclusion of the season, I think he spoke to some of our players, and at that point he chose to move on to, a derivative of the Princeton offense, and in fact he hired Eddie Jordan, I believe, in June. Now once that decision was made, we went into the off season, and lo and behold, we had a player that we got that we didn't know we'd get, Steve Nash. And then amongst the rumors that we'd get Dwight Howard, it didn't look at some point that we would get him, and we got him in August. So the team makeup changed after Mike had made a decision to go to a different offense. And, you go into the whole lockout thing last year. It would not have been fair to make a change last year. There's just too much going on, and we chose to wait till training camp and see how things go, and we know how they went.
He's Mitch Kupchak, Laker GM, joining us, Dan Patrick Show. Would Mike D'Antoni be this coach if you didn't have Steve Nash?
That's a good question. I think it comes down to a style of play in training camp and how the team would have started. If we would have started the same way, then maybe we'd have the same concerns. Don't know.
But he was your first call.
Mike D'Antoni?
Yes.
Mike was our first choice going into the decision to relieve Mike Brown of his duties.
But he was not the first call.
Well, we did not call him while Mike Brown had the job.
Well, I'm saying once you made that decision, I said this before. I was trying to get the time frame, Mitch, just
Right.
to understand it. And I didn't know if you made a courtesy call to Phil Jackson just so you could say to your fan base, look, we did reach out to Phil, and I thought maybe he surprised you by saying, look, I'm a little more interested in this, and give me till Monday. Now, did it play out that way at all?
Okay. Well, in terms of the timeline, I mean, to get it accurate, I did not call anybody on Friday, which was the day that we relieved Mike Brown of his duties.
Okay.
Saturday morning, Jim Buss and Jim put a call in to Phil on Saturday morning and said Mitch and I would like to come by and meet. Now, all day Friday after we relieved Mike of his duties, you know, the surrounding hoopla and publicity surrounding that Phil Jackson might come back was just going crazy. So although going into it, you know, we didn't feel Phil wanted to coach, and our choice was Mike D'Antoni, by Saturday morning, you know, we felt a very strong obligation to meet with Phil and sit down and talk to him, you know, which is what we did for about an hour, hour and a half. You know, we did not offer the job, and he did not indicate he wanted the job. At the end of the meeting, he said he needed more time, and he said he'd get back to us on Monday. At that point, I said, well, Phil, you know, I have a job to do. I have to contact other candidates. And he looked at me and he nodded as if he understood. Now, after that meeting, you know, I did call for the first time Mike D'Antoni. That was Saturday afternoon. And I also spoke to another coach that we interviewed. So that's kind of the timeline as best I remember it.
But if Phil said yes on Saturday, would he be your coach?
We would have huddled up right away with Dr. Buss, Jimmy and I, and we would have made a decision without contacting, you know, Mike D'Antoni or that other coach. Certainly at that point, you know, we felt a lot of pressure to bring Phil back.
But would he have gotten the job?
Well, you know, we never had the meeting with Dr. Buss, so you're asking me to speculate. The only thing I could say would be there would be a very high probability that we would have made a decision, you know, without contacting, you know, other coaches.
But was it a courtesy call to Phil?
No, the groundswell of support on Friday and going into Saturday, it was not a courtesy call. Now, we had not spoken to him, either Jim or I, until the meeting. So it was just the fans' reaction and third parties getting back to us, you know, with something like, hey, this is something that Phil might want to do.
Now, why would he say it was weird and slimy, the call on Sunday night, which, you know, for Phil to say that, you know, when he gets the call from you, in his mind, did he think he had this job or he had till Monday to decide on this job?
I think it was two things. And in his defense, there was a lot of third-party phone calls and sources, an NBA source and someone close to Phil. A lot of that stuff takes place, you know, nowadays. And I got the impression now, looking back on it, that he felt the job was his until Monday to decide. And, you know, that wasn't my understanding of our meeting, but I could see how he could feel that. The other thing was I called him on Sunday night about midnight. And that's an odd time to call somebody knowing that you'll probably wake him up, which I'm sure I did. But with Mike D'Antoni, we did not get his contract signed until about 11:30 on Sunday night. And at that point, you know, the choice for me was to wait till Monday morning, at which time the story had already begun to break, and call Phil, or to wake him up and tell him. And I chose the latter, which was to wake him up. And, you know, that doesn't come across well initially, but I think when you look at the timeline, you say, hey, maybe Mitch made the right decision of the two.
Yeah, it seemed confusing because it sounded like a courtesy call to Phil. Phil's a little more interested. Phil, we had Mike D'Antoni in mind. We have other candidates, just to let you know. All right, I'll get back to you on Monday. Then you call him Sunday night. You don't even give him till Monday. Public pressure involved in it. And then it felt like a smear campaign that Phil was asking for a piece of the team and maybe he wasn't going to go on road trips. Magic Johnson's comments about the Lakers hired the wrong guy twice. There was a lot more to it than you're making it simplistic. It seemed like there was a lot more to it, though, Mitch.
It was pretty simple. Now, all the things you mentioned, going back to the third party or this source said, that source said, there was so much coverage in the 2 or 3 days, and it's almost impossible to tell where it came from. I will say, of the things you mentioned, none of those things took place in the meeting. I mean, we talked about travel, and we talked about, having more say in the team or more knowledge of what's going on, but there were no demands. I mean, Phil didn't say, I don't want to travel. Phil didn't say, I need to be the guy running the program. So I don't know where that came from. Having been with Phil for so many years, I do know physically, his state and, how hard it is to travel in this league, but none of that stuff came up.
How important is this style? Now, I know it's Kobe and Steve Nash's window of opportunity, but this style also has to entertain, placate Dwight Howard to get him to stay. When do you address a long-term contract with Dwight Howard?
We haven't even begun to address that. Our feeling all along was, get him to Los Angeles and let the city, let the organization, the fans, and the guys on this team convince him this is the place for him to be. So that's not something that we even plan to discuss with him, other than to say it the way I just said it to you. Now, from a business point of view, and I don't want to get into the collective bargaining agreement, but it really makes no sense for somebody like Dwight right now to sign an extension. Mm-hmm. The maximum length of a contract and the maximum numbers in the contract would be in this coming summer. So he's not going to sign anything anyway. So it's ridiculous to even talk about it.
Well, I didn't know if you start to explore that. Or, I mean, you got to make sure he likes this coach and this offense.
I don't think it's going to be a problem. If you've watched him play, the last 3 or 4 days, number one, his health is still not 100%, but he's getting up there in the 80s and almost 90%. And he's going to love the style of play because it's open. He'll get out on the break. He'll have a lot of room to operate. And I think most importantly, if you watch his teammates, they really look for him. With Pau Gasol and Kobe Bryant, looking for Dwight, he's really going to prosper in this offense. And we haven't even brought Steve Nash back. Steve only played a game and a half for us so far.
How long do you think Kobe will play?
Well, he's got this year and next year under his contract. If you watch the way he played this year, there's been no dip in his performance whatsoever.
But you expect him to play 2 years. You expect him to play more than that?
Don't know. A month ago, he was talking about, he didn't want to play beyond 2 years. I haven't sat down with him and talked to him about it. I'm just telling you how he's playing right now. This has been the most efficient I've seen him play in 2 or 3 years.
Is he part of management at all in making decisions? He said he was in those meetings with you. Is he unofficial part of management?
He wasn't in any meetings I was in.
Oh, okay.
No meetings. I'll take the temperature of the team every now and then. I'll talk to Kobe. Just like I would with other players. Because Kobe's been here so long, I think my relationship with him is probably, obviously a lot better than it is with, Steve Nash. But I'll go down and talk to Pau Gasol, and I'll talk to Meta and get varying sources of information. But clearly with Kobe, there's a long-term relationship with him. Maybe you share more with him than you would with somebody else.
Is anything but winning a championship acceptable?
Remains to be seen. Going into the season with this team and our payroll, we know we've increased our chances. We also know that injuries play a key component. Getting a right call, a ball bouncing the right way, all those things factor in. But we went into the season knowing that for at least the next 2 years, this is our best chance to win a championship. Now, if you get beat in the finals or the semifinal, who knows? But those things get crazy. But winning in this city is paramount. Good
to visit with you. Appreciate you coming on. I know you knew what was coming, but I appreciate you answering the questions, Mitch.
Dan, have a happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
You too, bud. Thank you. That's Mitch Kupchak, Laker GM. Yeah, just trying to sort this out. I really believe, and this is just a gut feeling, that it was a courtesy call to Phil. He was more interested than they thought. They already were going to hire Mike D'Antoni. The public pressure, all of a sudden you're giving till Monday, and then you probably started to get a little nervous here because you wanted D'Antoni. Now Phil's interested. Can you wait till Monday? You don't. You signed D'Antoni on Sunday night. You don't get back to Phil. That's why I said it was slimy and weird.